see, that's where the Coniunctio comes in, right? Because the two parts of the yin and yang are don't fit. Okay, they're oil and water, and so somehow you have to have the alchemical glue that holds the whole thing together in all pairs of opposites.
Yeah, but one side can't be bigger than the other. They got to balance out.
Well, that's right. They have to be balanced.
You can't force.
Right. Do you follow that? I mean,
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I mean, are there periods where they contract and one can get bigger one side, and they're constantly seeking balance, but they never stay balanced, right?
they never make it, right? It's well, Jung talks about it in Memories. He says
It has to go uneven or else wrong. In other words, you wouldn't learn anything.
But you're within the
There
sphere.
has to be
it's
Like the white would shrink, but then the black would get bigger, and then that would, so it's all
right,
within
but
the
if
sphere.
it's getting bigger,
conversation.
yeah, but if it's getting bigger there, it's getting smaller here,
Right.
right? The universe is balanced.
Just like the energy thing,
Right.
you're just moving it around.
You move the energy
field
around.
the field might be constant, and the elements are just shifting.
Okay.
And so, it's like when you're making dinner, right? And if you pour honey over chicken, it's not necessarily that great. But if you combine honey in a mixture that is a sauce for chicken, it can be magnificent, or whatever it is. But a chicken is never going to be honey, right? and well, I mean, so the chicken and the honey are always chicken and honey, but it's the combination in the dish that makes it magnificent, right? This is what a chef does. And this is what alchemy is. And so a marriage works not when you change the other one, but when you find ways to have binders between you
When there's a mutuality going on.
Yeah, there has to be a mutuality. So maybe some things that, and obviously children are that. A child is alchemy, right? It's the combination of the two of you. And so it's not one and it's not the other, it's the combination of the two. And so when we're talking about the Coniunctio, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a child. Okay, it's like in my poem, The Whale and the Horse. There was never a child between a whale and a horse, obviously, but in that poem there is, and that's the alchemy in it, right? And where does the alchemy happen? Right there, right? And so it's in some ways it's romantic, right? So let me read this. It says, remember in Anne, Jung stated that the anima or animus can be realized only through a relation to a partner of the opposite sex, because only in such a relation do their projections become operative. So the point is, you have to constellate that part of yourself, and the only way it gets constellated, it's not in you, it has to be in your partner, right?
It becomes a mirror.
It becomes a mirror.
Or a screen.
Yeah, sort of. And so it was the same idea for Yahweh. He had a consort. His consort was Sophia, but he forgot about her. Or more precisely, he never really knew her. Okay? And just as the ego, in order to become conscious of the contrasexual other, must experience a real encounter with the opposite sex through a relationship, so must Yahweh do the same in order to become conscious of his other. And so that's where we have a problem with patriarchal religions, because they've written the feminine out of the story. And now it's coming around to bite him, which is what Jung says toward the end of Answer to Job. Because Yahweh is eternal and immortal, his other is temporal and mortal. He needs that other in order to become conscious of his inner contrary. So, in order to have both sides of the opposites, you have to have somebody that's going to constellate the opposites. Since Yahweh was immortal, he had to have a mortal partner. Right? That's what Jung's saying, that they're opposites. And
That more sounds like to me like compliments than opposites.
well, maybe it is compliments. Yeah, I mean,
At that
It's-
level of organization.
well, it's part.
complexity, it's gotta be
Let's say that it's parts of wholeness, except wholeness is made up by opposites, and so what Edinger was talking about was that when you are conscious of the opposites, you see it everywhere, because we see it in Republican, Democrat, red, blue, you know, men, women, you know, at any partner, any party, the women will end up in the kitchen and the men will end up staring at a football game, you know, whatever it is, right? Is that archetypal or what, right? And
Right. Well, those are more like oppositions.
well, but what
I'm just saying because
whether they're
let's say
oppositions or
black and white are opposites, right?
right.
We could say that, and but
The point is, they're both in the whole,
But
whether it's oppositions or complements. They're both in wholeness,
yeah, okay.
right? They're in wholeness, whether they're opposites or
Looking like the
complements.
color wheel or
Again, it's
something?
all it's all conceptual stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, it's all conceptual stuff, sure. We're trying to make it easy so that the viewers of these videos can understand what the heck we're talking about and won't just bounce off.
They're all asleep.
They're working on it.
Apparently my laugh is quite popular. Okay, so in page 57 of Transformation of the God Image, reflection on this analogy between the marriage relationship and the relationship between the ego and the self, we realize that marriage is a psychological relationship, which is the name of a Jungian essay, can be transferred almost in its entirety to the ego-self relationship. And page 58, he's saying that, okay, you ready for this? There is no birth of consciousness without pain. We've talked about that a lot, but, you know, Jung in his famous quote about the world hangs by a thin thread, one of the things he says in like the next paragraph of his statement is, if people are well housed and well fed, they don't have any ideas at all, right? And so it's only when you have pain that you have ideas about how to get out of pain, right? That's the purpose of pain, in fact.